Alright, welcome. My name is Hannah Sigler, and I'm your host. This is Milk and Coffee, small talk about Curb Your Enthusiasm, which obviously is very ironic because this is probably the antithesis of everything Larry David in this show is about. Anyway, we're going to be talking about Season 10, which is the most recent season that's been out, and it marks 2 decades of the show being on HBO, which is crazy that it's been out for so long and that it's still going strong. Just recently, I think it was on Seth Meyers, maybe Stephen Colbert, one of the two. They asked either one of those hosts asked Larry if he was planning on stopping the season anytime soon. Normally 10 is like a benchmark for when shows kind of decide to stop, but he said he's not planning on stopping anytime soon, which I'm ecstatic about because I thought this season was great. For me, I think since I was kind of young when the original seasons were out, there's a lot of references in them that I don't really understand that much, and I have to have someone explain to me. But as the seasons get on later, especially like season 10, there's a lot more stuff in it that I can find funnier because I understand it a bit better. So great for me because I get to really understand how great this show is and enjoy it myself. So now I'm just going to give a quick summary to kind of refresh you on what happened in Season 10. If you haven't seen Season 10 and you want to do so, there will be spoilers later on in the episode. I recommend stopping after the summary, but feel free to listen through this. So, with Season 10, Larry is still navigating his life as a new divorcee with his roommate Leon. Cheryl is still with Ted Danson, tragically, but there's someone new with the loss of Cheryl in his life, and also the passing of Marty Funkhauser. There's a new person in town, like I said before, and that is Mocha Joe. And Larry and Mocha Joe meet Season 1, Episode 1. Larry first meets Mocha Joe Season 1, Episode 1 when he visits its cafe, Mocha Joe's. So, with the visit of Mocha Joe's, Larry has the most chaotic encounter with him. He hates the coffee shop, and it results with him being banned from it. And with that, Larry decides it's time for him to take matters into his own hands and create his own very Larry David coffee shop, which is much better than Mocha Joe's, right next door, and that is Latte Larry's. So the whole season revolves around him trying to create the better store out of spite, which is, as you would expect, it's called a spite store, and the competition between the two. And all of the different activities that go around in each episode sort of revolve around it. So I'm going to go into some of the ways that Mocha Joe versus Latte Larry's was really utilized in the plot throughout the show. And yeah, if you're looking to avoid spoilers, I would stop here and revisit this once you're done. First, I'd just like to highlight a few episodes from Season 10. Those being Episode 1, Happy New Year, Episode 4, You're Not Going to Get Me to Say Anything Bad About Mickey, Episode 7, The Ugly Section, Episode 9, Beep Panic, and Episode 10, The Spite Store. For this podcast, I really want to focus on Episode 1, which is Happy New Year, Episode 4, You're Not Going to Get Me to Say Anything Bad About Mickey, and Episode 10, the season finale, The Spite Store. And the reason I'm picking the 3 of those are that I think that the 3 really work together and are the ones where the Mocha Joe versus Latte Larry plotline is the most cohesive and clear. And if you pay attention throughout all of the season, all of the little details will kind of play a part in the Spite Store season finale. But I think it's really best noted in Episode 4. Okay, with Season 1, Episode 1, as I said before, that's the introduction of Mocha Joe and when he and Larry meet for the first time. So you're really going to want to be paying attention to the first couple minutes of the episode and what goes on when they first meet. So as he goes in, he has a good interaction with Mocha Joe when they meet for the first time, but things kind of spiral as events turn out. So it starts with the coffee being too cold, his scone not being a scone, it says it's more of a muffin because it's too soft, the tables being wobbly. Those are going to be playing a key role within the rest of the season. Different episodes, he's going to take control of different aspects of his business to counter those problems that he thinks Mocha Joe's has. And those are going to be the most prominent running gags of this season. Running gags are just jokes that are repeated throughout a season or throughout the entirety of a show, really. For Curb Your Enthusiasm, each show kind of has, or each episode, has running gags throughout them. And those carry on throughout an entire season. And there are a few, your typical Larryisms that continue on throughout the whole series. In this case, for season 10, they would be the problems of Mocha Joe's. The chairs, the tables, the coffee being too cold, what I had said before. So episode 1 does a good job of establishing the running gags for the season, and the rest of the ones that I've mentioned before, 4, 7, 9, 10, are a good job of exemplifying how they play out throughout the rest of the season. And the episode that I thought was pretty interesting and that I want to talk about specifically is season 10, episode 4. So with episode 4, that's You're Not Going to Get Me to Say Anything Bad About Mickey, and you will find Larry and his friends on a trip to Cabo for a wedding. And what I think is really interesting about it is Larry's with all of his friends, the people that he's normally hanging out with, and he's still working on his business. And even though he's abroad, he's thinking of ways that he can top Mocha Joe. So this would be an episode where I think Larry, I don't know what that was, but Larry asserts himself over Mocha Joe, and he sets out to find the best coffee beans that he can, because Mocha Joe has pretty good coffee beans, but they're not as good as he thinks they can be. He needs to top them, but it will be hard, but he knows that there's better. And lo and behold, at the resort they're staying at, they have better coffee beans. So even though he's at a wedding, the top priority on his mind is getting better coffee beans. Even with his date that he brought, who obviously doesn't really stick around after these antics, their day revolves around trying to get the coffee beans. He does a bunch of crazy things to try and find them. He tries to break into the kitchen. He talks to the concierge. Does everything he can, tries to bribe him to try and get these coffee beans. And ultimately, he steals them. And when he does, he is not able to take them on to the private jet that they're taking home. Because if he brings them on, it's going to be way too heavy for the plane to fly. And before, they already had problems with that on the way there. And as they return, they're not going to have any more weight problems. And rather than taking the private jet home, which is normally something Larry wants, as we know he hates flying anything other than first and private, does not want to ride business or commercial home, he decides to stay back with the coffee beans, and we see his buddies flying away from him just because he wants to beat Mocha Joe. And I thought that it was just hilarious how he did everything that he could to try and beat him, and he wasn't even in California, not even near his business, but he's just so set on beating Mocha Joe that he risks his new girlfriend, his time with his friends, even interactions with Cheryl, who he starts to reconcile with a little bit after their divorce. He risks all of that basically just to get these coffee beans, which I thought was pretty funny. Okay, and the next episode I want to talk about is season 10, episode 10, which is the finale, and that's the Spite Store. So with the Spite Store, now Latte Larry's is open, it's ready, business is booming, and it's the final battle between him and Mocha Joe of who will become victorious in this Southern California battle of coffee shops on some random shopping mall street in Los Angeles. I really don't know where it is, but wherever it is, it's whoever is going to be the best on the block between the two. So we've spent a whole season seeing how the two of them try to counter one another, try to top each other's businesses. That's lowering prices, trying to get better beans, getting new people to talk about their business, hiring new people, and the Spite Stores, the final time that we see the two of them. And sadly, it ends with Latte Larry falling apart. And what happens is you see all of the running gags connect. even when you think throughout the season that Larry's on top, it seems like he has more money to invest in his company. He solves a lot of problems that, I mean, obviously he thinks Mocha Joe's has, but a lot of consumers feel that they have as well. He's able to lower his prices a lot more than Mocha Joe is, because obviously Curb is about Larry kind of navigating life with the fortune he built off of Seinfeld. So obviously has a lot more money than Mocha Joe sadly does for his business. So he's just kind of doing it. Obviously, like we said, it's a spite store. It's not really a business for him. But Larry still wants to get something out of his investment, and he doesn't think that it's gonna end up in flames like it does. So all of the running gags that I had mentioned before, that being that the coffee is too cold, and that the scones are too hard, the tables are wobbly at Mocha Joe's, those play a part in the ultimate destruction of Larry's business. So when one of Larry's employees is closing up for the day, the building sets on fire, and the things that really kind of just take it to the next level are that he has his business is just not up to fire protocol. The tables are like just nailed into the ground, and they just burn on fire pretty quickly, and it's just not a... If there was someone in the building, I think they said that they were not going to be able to escape because of how nailed in they were, and that they couldn't really save them. Also, that the coffee... Okay, what really starts the fire is one of Mocha Joe's one of Larry's, his coffee mugs, which are self-insulating, self-heating, set on fire. And just all of the other little running gags of the season really amplify that. And they just really incite the fire, ignite it way more than it would have been had just like one little cup burnt and overheat. And because of this, Larry, the police tell Larry that now it can be vulnerable to lawsuits for arson. It seems like he basically just set it up to do this, because with Latte Larry's falling apart, that means Mocha Joe's ultimately did too. He's not the only one falling. Mocha Joe comes down with him. But that ends with Larry having to pay off Mocha Joe and a ton of court fees and settlements. So it ends with Mocha Joe being Larry's new neighbor. I don't know if we'll get more of Mocha Joe after the season. I feel like that's that with him. I don't think Larry will move. Normally with like this kind of running gag where it's specific to the plot of the season, we don't really hear about anything really after it. So I'm excited to see what's next, but I thought the story of Mocha Joe and all the things that went on with it were hilarious. Obviously the running gags are pretty good, and the way that they really build the plot at the end, I think just again show how amazing the creators of, and Larry David in specific, is with Curb Your Enthusiasm, because the show, as we know, is improv for the most part. They just kind of have a general outline of what the show will be, what each episode is, what the season's going to be about, to kind of give them direction. But for them to be able to find these ways to think of so many funny jokes around these little details blows my mind, especially since how obviously it's improv. So you can't really think about it that much going in. You can have multiple takes and everything, but you're not going to have a solid product. So for them to be able to really nail all of these gags, the season finale, the way that they did, I thought was amazing, and I couldn't get over it for a couple days because of how much I just loved the season. And for that, I would say, not to be cliche, or just kind of boring, but I think that this was like one of my favorite seasons of Curb. I thought it was really great. I think this, and I cannot remember the season that Leon was first introduced. That's a really high contender for me. I just love that season so much. But this one I thought was amazing. There's a lot of really good hosts or guests in it. I love the episode with John Hamm. He's hilarious. And there was also appearances from, I'm trying to remember, basically everyone you can think of. As always, there's always a ton of people in the show. Nick Kroll is another interesting appearance. He was in the ugly section, which I thought he was hilarious in it. I'm trying to think of more people that were in it that were pretty cool. I mean, there's always a ton of people, but I can't really think of anyone right now. Wasn't Kristen Chenoweth someone who looks sort of similar to her? Oh, yes. Elizabeth Banks, another good one in that series as well. But yeah, through all of these appearances, how well the gags were implemented, I think that today on our podcast, Milk and Coffee, we're going to have to give it 4 out of 5 stars for this season. I thought it was amazing. Every episode really impressed me. And yeah, thank you for listening.